Welcome back to the David Kurten Show. I'm David Kurten here on today's News Talk TNT, and I'm delighted to have with me in the show and this period Bianca Isherwood. Now, Bianca, I know because she's in the Heritage Party and is the coordinator of the Heritage Party branch in Southend. Welcome to the show, Bianca.
Thank you, David. Thanks for having me.
Nice, really good to see you. And you're sitting in front of a sign that says Stop Agenda 2030. I think some people have heard of that, but not everyone would have heard of that. What is Agenda 2030 and why is it important for people to know about it?
I think lots of people understand some of Agenda 2030 because it's a whole move towards communism and social credit system and ULEZ and 15-minute cities, and all these things are part of Agenda 2030. And even if you don't know what it is in its entirety, everybody knows like one part of it. So we did our outreach last Saturday, and we haven't done outreach since last summer, I don't think, in our high street. And it was amazing the difference we had from the amount of people that were coming over because it said Stop Agenda 2030 and people were starting to realise what that is now. Whereas before, maybe we'd get some people that come over and say, what is Agenda 2030? And I always have the printout. There's like some coloured lines on a sheet and it will explain, you know, we're going to have no airlines. And then I explain to them how we're going to get enough food into the country. We don't have enough farming land. How are we going to be self-sufficiency? How do you feel about eating bugs? And then they start to realise all the moving parts to it. But also, obviously, one of the reasons that I joined the Heritage Party was to stop Agenda 2030 coming in on a local level, because there are lots of little things you can do on a local level as well. You know, like voting against the ULEZ and things like that. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, and I was going to ask you about that because you're very active in politics on a local level. But when did you first get involved in politics? And was it when you joined the Heritage Party, or were you involved in politics and activism on a local level before then?
Activism, yes. Politics, no, never thought about it. All I've got is a sociology GCSE. Never thought I'd be end up in politics. So I started out protesting and petitioning all the lockdowns, all the mandates, all things like that. But what we're essentially doing when we do that is we're asking the government or them, they do this, they do that. We're asking them to listen to us and to stop something from happening. But even if 95% of a population signed a petition that says we don't want this, we don't want it to happen, I really don't think they would listen because they're going to just carry on with the agenda full stop. So a lot of people, like we've got Save Our Rights UK, they sent an email the other day to their list, which I'm on, and it says, I want to be fighting to the end of my death. We want to focus on the solutions now. Well, I feel like I started off focusing on the solutions. I started the Freedom Network branch in Southend. So we did group allotments. I helped a lot of carers keep their work for not wanting to get the experimental vaccines. We started to learn about common law, all these things to try and learn to live as best we can to be self-sufficient and not relying on the system. And I started the People's Health Alliance in Southend. But at the end of the day, we've got lots of people, they're living in vans, they don't want to pay their water bills, they're trying to live the best they can in this awful time, but we're not en masse getting up and leaving to the countryside. We're not en masse going to build the communes because a lot of people, they don't have the balls to do it. A lot of people don't even have the balls to take their children out of school. So unless we all wake up one day and we all do it together, like stop, you know, it's more, even if we went and we all moved to the countryside and we started to farm the land and we taught ourselves how to do it again, what's going to stop the government from spraying chemtrails over the new crops that we're building? What's going to stop them from sending in people to infiltrate our new communities and start the agendas all over again, start the indoctrination all over again? So we've either got to start changing it from the inside, which, I mean, lots of people are attached to their houses and they don't want to stop paying their mortgages, ready to make that leap. So it's far more viable to change it from the inside than it is to go and start again, where you're going to forever be having two sides that are fighting to keep your freedom and the way you want to live.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very, very difficult for everybody to go and leave the towns and cities
Yeah.
that they live in and go and move to the countryside. Because if you had 60 million people doing that, you just have to build new towns and cities in the countryside, and they would turn into towns and cities there, which then, you get people coming in, as you say, from the government, from the system, coming in to live amongst you and set up councils. Even if people set up people's assemblies or something, they would be infiltrated by the people who are actually working within the system we've got to undermine it and to make it some kind of hell that we have. So, I'm really glad that you've joined in and you're actually getting actively involved in politics and fighting within the system we have. I think that's the only way to do it, really, because those people are still there. And they have the right to life as much as we do. So we have to try to, if we can, change them and inform them. And I know that there's some people that simply can't. You can't, because they're the enemy. But there is a lot of people who are in the middle, who really don't know that maybe they're part of it. Maybe they're part of actually implementing Agenda 2030, but they don't know it and they don't understand it. How have your interactions with councillors been on that level?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to add that we need to make this stand now on a local level, because in
Mm,
case devolution comes in, this might be our last chance at normal local people
mm,
coming in to be elected. Because obviously, if devolution comes in, we won't be able to
mm.
afford to run in elections, things of that nature. But we went to a few council meetings. We asked the head of Labour at Southend Council to explain to us why there's a whole website that says Southend is set to become a smart city by
Wow.
2050. There's been no public consultation on it. And I was looking around the website and it's kind of cryptic. And he said, no, it's not going to be anything like you're thinking. Because I said, well, does this include geofencing? The 5G towers, if you
Mm,
don't believe they are harmful, they are being used in other countries for the geofencing, which is another digital constraint. It will be like a ULEZ area. You can't leave certain areas. You'll be tracked when you leave certain areas. And he was like, no, it's going to be nothing like that. It's going to be like Southend is a mini Silicon Valley. And I said, okay, what does that
right.
mean? What does that mean? And he said, it just means we'll all be well more connected. I said, so do you mean that you're going to be tracking all the citizens and data harvesting them then? No. It's just going to be, it'll be more technical. So that was the answer we got from that.
Wow.
Yeah,
I think that
yeah.
that's exactly what it's going to be. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. I think he knows it, but he's giving you an answer just to fob you off. I mean, that's unbelievable. Look, we're going to take a quick break now, have a news break. We'll come back. Don't go away. Back in a minute. This is today's News Talk, TNT. Welcome back to the David Kurten Show here on today's News Talk TNT. I have with me Bianca Isherwood, who's still with us, who is our Heritage Party Southend coordinator, who is doing a lot of work in Southend for freedom and for the people in Southend. Now, Bianca, you have been a candidate before, and you're going to be a candidate again this year in the local elections. What is it like being a candidate in local elections?
Well, it can be as involved or as not involved as you want to be. You can be as active or as not as active as you want to be. Because I know lots of people are interested in joining, but I don't have the time. We accept the paper candidates. That helps us. It helps us to see which areas we might want to place a more active candidate next time as well. And it helps us, people see the logo, question who we are, go look us up. Um, it's really easy. You just fill out a form and then away you go, really. It's a good platform. I think it's a good platform because I get to do all the things I was doing before, all the activist type things, speaking out against all the agendas. And instead of being called a conspiracy theory, I'm taken very seriously because I'm
Mm.
part of the Heritage Party, it's a political party, and everyone suddenly wants to listen. So I think
Wow.
it's good. If you're already doing any of those things, it will be a really easy transition and it counts towards something because it's not just, oh, we did this petition and then it was ignored.
Well, that's really positive when you say that because you are standing for a political party and you're standing in an election, you feel that people take you more seriously and you have more gravitas. And, it's easy for people to throw out all of these smears at you. I get this all the time, but that's really good. I mean, are you talking about local newspapers and local media and so on that give you a platform?
Absolutely not.
No,
We
okay, no.
um we've had so many issues with our local newspaper. So our local
Mm,
newspaper is called the Echo. Um, so in 2020, I was part of a group that organised a local protest against the vaccine passports.
mm,
Um, the newspapers did know about it the day before because someone told them. And then afterwards, they published a really neutral review saying, it was about the passports themselves, not about the vaccines. We had a valid
mm.
point, and then it was a peaceful protest. And then 3 days later, there was another article published saying that such a shame that a small group of people branched off and then they went outside a vaccine clinic and they caused loads and loads of
Mm.
chaos, and the police won't stop until we find out who they were. Well, I was one of those people. We went outside a vaccine clinic and we stood there and we handed out leaflets. And there were two
Right,
policemen there, and the two policemen took pictures with us, smiling
right.
pictures. So if we had done anything wrong, there were two policemen there, and we were also next to the police station. So
Wow.
if we were under anything, we did anything wrong, we would have been dealt with there. None of us were ever contacted to say we'd done something wrong and that the police wanted to talk to us, because nothing actually happened. So it was an absolute
Gosh.
lie. We've local, obviously, interview with Nikki Cody, and she there was just, they publish things that are very openly vague,
Mm.
uh, and then it leaves it open to, you know well, it's hard to
Yeah,
say
they
when I
they twist
maybe we'll
things,
leave
don't
that
they?
one.
And they
Yeah, maybe we'll leave that one because I'm not sure, because she's going through a court process right now, so I'm not going to comment on
Okay.
that any
Yeah,
further.
yeah. Okay.
But
This is someone that you're helping with a particular
yeah,
case. Yeah, you don't need to mention that. But I mean that's interesting. The media is they twist the story to make you look bad when actually you were with the police and they were absolutely fine with you handing out
yeah,
leaflets. And actually you were doing a service because the people going to these injection centers weren't getting information about what these vaccines were doing and how they might harm them. But actually, you were informing them so that they could actually decide whether to give informed consent or not.
yeah. Um, there's our local Echo is also publishing people's details now. So if you
Wow.
have a car incident, like a speed ticket or something, it says name of the person, address of the person, age of the person, what their, crime was, what date they went to what call, and what was the outcome and how much they had to pay. I mean,
Wow.
when did that become legal to publish all of those personal details of a person in a local newspaper? It's like name.
That's shocking. That's absolutely appalling. I didn't know that, I've never seen that before. And that's very disturbing that that's happening if that is. Gosh, yeah. And let's hope that that's not happening everywhere. But look, I want to ask you something else about getting involved in local politics, because even though you stood, you didn't win last time. Hopefully, you will win this time in the elections on May the 2nd, and it'd be wonderful if you become a councillor there in Southend. But even if you're not a councillor, how can people get involved in challenging their local council and engaging in what they're doing and opposing things that they're doing that you may not like?
Well, you can watch all of the council meetings. You don't have to go to them. I watched our budget meeting the other night for about 4 hours, where they all showed themselves up because the newspaper said that quote from the council last year, Southend ULEZ was just mentioned and it was never going to happen. But they were all arguing over, well, the deal was on the table for ULEZ and you said this and we said that. So they're admitting that it was,
Mm,
because they're all discussing it openly. They also talk about Target 2030, Target 2030. So
mm.
if anyone else still thinks Agenda 2030 is a conspiracy theory, you can go onto the Southend Council webcast library and you can listen for yourself. You can submit questions to the council, although our process, I think, is a little bit different to elsewhere because they have to screen your question. So you have to submit a question in writing, and then if they say okay, then you can come and read it out, and they have a pre-scripted answer. So it's not that great. That's as far as you can get.
Yeah.
Obviously, keep an eye on what is going on with the consultations. They're very few and far between. But they're very sneaky as well, the consultations, because they won't do everything very heavy-handedly all at once. They'll bring in small things, like there's recently been one on home ed, and that's obviously not local, it's national. But it was about changing the guidelines. And there's now a consultation about that consultation because it was so poorly advertised and so poorly worded. There's a consultation about not doing them like that anymore. But always look for the consultations.
Yeah.
And go and find out who your counsellors are. Go and speak to them. I would also say look very carefully into any independent candidates, because obviously lots of them have recently left or were involved in other parties previously, and sometimes it is just a political move for them to appear as an independent candidate, and then once they're re-elected in there, they'll just, agree with everything their ex-party says or their secret real party says. So
yeah, that's a big thing, and they're very sneaky doing this, and you got to look out for that. Look, Bianca, thank you so much for coming on the show. I wish you and the team in Southend all success for the elections on May the 2nd. I hope you all get elected, and then we'll have some really good representation in Southend Council, as we will all around the country where we're standing. And what I would say to people listening as well, I hope you're inspired by this, because I'm an ordinary person. We're ordinary people, but we're standing for election and getting involved in the political process. And if you want change, don't leave it up to the people that are there already. You've got to actually be the change, get involved, get active, stand for your councils, try to become the councillors, and then you can make the decisions that affect your own life, and you won't be leaving it to people who don't have your best interests at heart. Bianca, thank you so much, and good luck to you.
thank you.
You're welcome. This is today's News Talk, TNT.